So let's see what we got. All right. Is anyone wondering what these are? And why I went to all the trouble to build all this? No. So my name is John Gallant. I'm Principal SDE at Microsoft on the Developer Experience team. And basically what I do is I kind of have a dream job. I get to play with IoT stuff. I get to work with partners to build IoT solutions, and then I bring that feedback back to the product team. I've been a developer since 1999 with classic ASP, VB6 COM. Nobody. All right, one person. Thank you. And I've been at Microsoft since 2003, and I've been a manager pretty much the entire time until recently. So I was a manager on Bing, MSN, and most recently Power BI. And so we'll talk a little bit about Power BI. I have another session, Power BI for developers, that I'll talk about in a bit. And before that, I was in IoT. And so when I was in Power BI, I shipped Power BI embedded, and I had to make a decision. What do I do after that? I really liked IoT and really liked big data, so I basically moved from Power BI embedded to work in DX. So now I'm part of the developer evangelism team as a developer, and it's been a blast so far. And so why I say that is basically because it's a really good cross between all the stuff I'm interested in and stuff that Microsoft needs and stuff that partners need, right? So not about just doing what I'm interested in, but is actually something of value. So blog up there, johngallant.com, Twitter, @johngallant. So today, we're going to talk about Azure IoT. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible so you can have at least one takeaway. And so you think about IoT, it's about data ingestion. It's about two-way communication. It's about processing the data once you have it and then displaying that data. And so I said, hey, let me structure my talk around those four things. So that's what we'll do today. I'm going to give you a quick Azure IoT overview. I don't want to spend too much time talking about business around Azure IoT. I want to get into the solution I developed. So Azure IoT is a high-scale, secure IoT platform that Microsoft has released, I think, about 18 months ago. It has been very popular. I work with partners pretty much every day of the week. There's a new partner that comes up that wants to build on top of IoT, and I'm helping them do that. And the big thing with our solution is that it enables per-device security credentials, and so not only authorization, but authentication, but also authorization. So you can say this device should read data or this device should write data. And it allows you to register devices, get keys for those devices, and manage your fleet of devices from Azure IoT. All the SDKs for communicating with Azure IoT are all on GitHub. We have Node, C#, C, Java. And really, it's built for millions of devices, millions of events per second. So what I did is I said, well, I want to talk to people about Azure IoT. So I cooked up this crazy thing that's really, it looks like I just kind of came up with it because I like spheros and spinning things. But it's actually pretty practical because it's a Bluetooth low energy device, not connected to the internet. So when I say BLE, I mean Bluetooth low energy. And we want to get this data. Let's say this is some BLE device that you have somewhere in your IoT system. You want to get that data to Azure IoT. Azure IoT speaks AMQP, MQTT, and HTTP. BLE is not in that list. So what we have to do is we have to come up with a gateway device in between the device and Azure IoT. And the perfect device to do so is a Raspberry Pi. And so this is a monitor housing with a Raspberry Pi in there. The Raspberry Pi 3 supports BLE. So BLE communication, this talks AMQP to Azure IoT. And then from there, what we want to do is we want to have a way to send commands to devices. And in the real world, it's like, move this lever of this big machinery to do something. In this case, it's spin this ball, right? To get it as simple as possible. When I originally came up with this, I was like, spin the ball, go in a certain direction, change the color, all this complex stuff. But I said, let's just do color. Let's just do device blue, device red, right? And so I see this all the time when I'm talking to customers. It's like, how do we talk to IoT Hub? How do we get device data to it? How do we get commands from it? So that's a good two-way communication system there. Stream Analytics is brought in to go from IoT Hub to Power BI, basically, or some display system, or some persistent store like SQL and so on. Power BI is a self-service BI product that Microsoft recently released. And I've created some custom visuals on using the Power BI SDK, and I have another session on how I did that. So this is how to display your IoT data. And then what I have is a way to communicate to the device through Twitter, right? So if you tweet Azure Sphero and then red or blue, these devices should move, okay? And how I do that is I have Service Fabric using the Twitter streaming API, listening for a hashtag. When it sees that hashtag, it sends that message to Logic Apps. Logic Apps is Microsoft's cloud-based workflow service. It sends it to Logic Apps. Logic Apps uses Azure Functions, which are cloud-based functions, so a serverless function in the cloud, to convert that tweet to JSON, and then sends that JSON to IoT Hub. IoT Hub then communicates to the gateway. Thank you. All right. Somebody tweeted. And so that's live. Who, raise your hand. Somebody, all right. I don't know you, that was not planned. Thank you. And so the IoT Hub sends it to the gateway through BLE back to the device, okay? So now we're going to walk through how I built this crazy concoction of tech. And we're also going to play a little game, okay? We call it Azure Sphero Tweets. I came up with this because I thought it'd be fun. So if you open Twitter, Azure Sphero, red or blue, please do this now. You'll see a move. The person to tweet the most gets a prize. Okay. So we're going to have three. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. We're going to have 3 prizes. The first one is going to be a Raspberry Pi. Okay. I'm going to take my other Raspberry Pi out of my backup system, and I'm going to give it away. I just need a photo of you so I can tweet it. And then also a microbit controller for the second place. This is a little tiny board. That's a BLE board. And that is going to go to the second place. And then I have Ninja Cat unicorn, fire-breathing unicorn stickers for your laptop. And I think I have one here. Let's see. That guy right there. See that over here? This is a Pokeball my kid made for me. All right, so cool. So it's going to be fun. You can tweet throughout the whole. I'm going to remind you a couple times. So let's dig into the 4 things. Remember I said send, receive, process, display. I hope that's not distracting for anyone. No, I really hope it is. So the Sphero is going to connect to the Raspberry Pi. We talked about that, right? How do we do that? Well, I'm going to show you. How do we get the Raspberry Pi to send data to IoT Hub? Let's talk about that. Let's break it down into sections so we can kind of dissect this piece by piece. So first thing you're going to want to do is create an Azure IoT Hub as a service inside of Azure. And what that's going to do is going to provision a gateway for your devices to connect to the cloud. It's going to give you a connection string to your IoT Hub. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is get Device Explorer. Device Explorer is a Windows app, and we're working on a new one based on Electron that's going to be way better. But basically what that does is it allows you to go in, and these keys are not actually valid for all you hackers out there. You can try, but it ain't going to work. And so you say, I want Sphero Gateway to be the name of my device. That's this Raspberry Pi here. So when I send commands, when I send data and send commands back, it's going to say it's going to recognize that as Sphero Gateway, right? So think of this as a gateway device between the BLE and Azure IoT. Okay, as a reminder, we're playing a game. Let's take a short break to see where we're at. Okay, am I Azure Sphero red? I've done it 1,000 times. So you have to put in some, let's see. There we go. Yep, so Twitter doesn't allow you to tweet the same tweet. Again, so you put in something, put in MSIgnite, hashtag, whatever you want. So let's see. Let's see, Sphero 1. Can y'all see that dashboard up there? No, you can't. What is going on? Where is that being presented from? Do I need to present? Oh, I see. Boom. Okay. I don't like this dual screen thing here. Okay, that's not going to work. Let me just do this. I'm just going to duplicate. You're only going to see my nasty PowerPoint slides, but that's all right. So this should be refreshing with data from Azure. Let's see. All right, we'll take a look in a bit as to why that is not getting us data. Let's take a look at my copy. Whoa, okay. Eduardo, man, you really want that pie. Okay. Sweet. So I can't get any more real than that. It's working. I'm happy. I haven't spent any time on this. So to see it working is it's no big deal. No, it's been countless hours to get this ready for you today. And so, let's see. There we go. Okay, so like I said, all right, yes, I love this. Like I said, we have a bunch of open source SDKs, and the one that I'm using is the Node.js SDK. It's actually really easy to use. I'm going to show you how I used it. And so IoT Device is basically the SDK that allows you to connect to Azure, whereas the device AMQP allows you to specify what transport you want to use. So it's HTTP, AMQP, and MQTT. I'm not going to go into depth about what those are. You can look them up. But I'm choosing AMQP for this demo. And so this code is running on the Pi, Node.js on the Pi. Okay? The Sphero company, the company that makes these Sphero balls here, so this is what it looks like outside of the housing I 3D printed. So the top part was somebody created, but it was in a different housing. I printed out this base so it can spin around free. It looks like this, right? And Sphero uses these to teach people how to code. It's pretty fantastic. I really like that company. Anyway, they have an SDK, JavaScript SDK. So I use the Node.js Azure IoT SDK, and I use the Sphero JavaScript SDK. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reference those SDKs. Then you're going to want to connect from here to here. You want to say, for each of these Spheros that I've defined in some config, connect, and they have this connect function. Inside of Azure IoT, they have connection string. It's basically you build up this connection string. You say, what's the device? The device is Sphero Gateway. We already created that. What is the key for that device? And then what is the host name for your Azure IoT? When you provision your Azure IoT hub, it'll give you a name to do so. And then you just say Azure client.open, and you pass it a callback. Inside of the Sphero SDK, I can capture the gyro stream. I really like that, gyro stream. So you receive this gyro stream of data from the Spheros. So these will knock off. These will fall and roll. So the more you tweet, the faster they'll roll. So your goal is to try and to get them to kind of to fly off. I actually spent a bunch of time working on this. My 6-year-old boy comes home, and he's like, he messes around with it a little bit, and it breaks. And I'm like, Good tester right there, a 6-year-old for stuff like that, right? So you receive that gyro stream data, and then what you do is you'll say, okay, give me the gyro coordinates, the XYZ coordinates, and then call send to Azure. So Azure accepts string value inside of its message constructor. So you want to stringify your JSON value as you pass it from your gyro stream to your send function. And that's Azure Client Send event. And for those of you just joining us, we are playing a game here. You can win prizes. You just tweet Azure Sphero red or blue to move one of these two devices. The top tweeter wins a Raspberry Pi. Second place, a microbit. And then I have stickers. So let's see how we're doing. Let's see how we're doing. Eduardo, you are rocking it. All right. So we have 74, but that was the last count. Let me see. My Power BI dashboard is not exactly refreshed. Okay, we'll come back to it. I guarantee we will get an accurate count. But actually, fake John Gallant is in third right now. That's me, folks. All right. Okay, so we talked about sending data to. Let's talk about receiving events back. We're going to first take a look at what we need to do on the Raspberry Pi to actually receive that event from Twitter. So you see you go from Twitter, Service Fabric, Logic Apps to IoT Hub, Raspberry Pi. We're going to talk about the Pi first. So in our Azure Client Open, we pass it a callback, and we say, Azure Client, when you're fully open, I want you to call this other function. And here, what I'm doing, can you see my mouse there? No. There we go. What I'm doing here is saying, Azure, when I receive a message, call this other function, right? And so that message is, it will be device, we'll see. Receive from Azure, and then we'll execute the Sphero command. And then what we'll do is we'll say, find the device in my config based on blue or red, and then set a random color. You notice these colors are changing color all the time. That's that random color. We're going to send it in a different direction. So you see how it's spinning in all these different locations. So every time it starts, it'll reorient itself in a certain direction and then spin that way. And then so inside of Device Explorer, you have the capability to test out sending messages to devices. And I'm doing that here with this JSON. I'm saying device is red or blue in this case. Are we turning people away? Are we turning people away? No? OK, good. Just want to make sure. OK, so how do we go from Twitter to IoT Hub is the next part. So you'll go, oh no, why did we stop? OK, no, it's still running. OK, I'm disappointed. OK. All right, so we send that tweet, and then actually, just to make sure, I don't know. Let's do 100 here. Because if not, what I can do is reboot here. And it could also be that the batteries are dead because they're not supposed to last forever. Say what? All right, well, let's restart it here. Yeah, OK. Cool. So that it could just be battery's dead. But the good thing is that I'm still capturing your tweets. It is. All right. OK, so the next thing we want to talk about is the service fabric. So initially what I did is that when I configured this, I used the Twitter API, just the normal Twitter API, but they allow one call per minute, right? Which doesn't make for a very compelling demo when I say tweet something and a minute later it spins. And so I said, okay, what are we going to do? I was thinking about all these different options. I really wanted to tweet this. And I discovered this Twitter streaming API, which allows you to basically subscribe to a keyword and then execute based on that keyword. And so what the service fabric does is actually it sees a tweet with that keyword, and it will call the logic app using HTTP. Like I said before, a logic app is a cloud-based workflow management system. It's kind of like BizTalk in the cloud, but better. And so the logic app, it will receive an HTTP post of JSON data. It will it converts the tweet. So I abstract the tweet text out of that, and then convert that text to JSONs because my IoT hub understands this particular JSON format, and my Power BI streaming data endpoint expects a particular type of format. And then how many here have Azure Functions? Have you used an Azure Function? Okay. Oh my. Serverless. Okay, so serverless computing. Serverless, no. Okay. So we basically no servers. You just trust that Azure will have this function for you ready in the cloud. Basically, it spins up a VM every time you call this function, but it will cache that. So there's a cold start time with the function when you initially call it, but once you call it, it's very fast. And so basically, Logic Apps doesn't have a really good way to embed code inside of the Logic app yet. So I'm calling this Azure function to convert it to that JSON I need. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think it's because these guys are dead on battery. So I have some docking charger stations here that I'm just going to charge them. Unless somebody hacked it. Eduardo? Oh, man. I don't know, man. Why'd you have to do that? All right, 1 second. All right, backup ball. That one's not working either. I might just give away a dead Sphero. Okay, so blue seems to be working, red, not so much. Anyway, so we'll let that charge for a minute. So IoT Hub connector, you can still tweet. Those tweets will count. IoT Hub, it'll spin in your mind, okay? So Logic Apps does not have a way to communicate to IoT Hub directly. But what they did do is they open sourced a bunch of connectors for things like IoT Hub, CRM, Power BI, a bunch of these different open source endpoints. Basically, what you do is you deploy a proxy to Azure, and you say, Logic Apps, talk to my proxy. My proxy will talk to IoT Hub. That's what this does here. And then Power BI has a new feature called a streaming data set, which allows you to push data to Power BI using a URL only, basically, URL plus a body. And previous to this, you would have to do the OAuth dance to post data to Power BI. With this, you just have a URI, you post JSON data to it, and it should real-time update your Power BI dashboard. And okay, we are running this competition. That's not working right now. Let's take a look to see if we have any more tweets here. We're still at 74. That's what I'm going to do. Go here. What I have noticed is if I go and duplicate the dashboard, it will sometimes tweets copy. You've all been there. Whoa, okay. Is that Hamish? Oh, Eduardo and Hamish. Love it. Love it. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you guys. Oh, whoa. Okay. Remember, they're spinning somewhere in the world, in the universe. All right, So the other cool thing that is happening, it should be happening. It's not because they apparently don't have power. I'm using this awesome custom visual that I created called the liquid fill gauge. So it's Power BI custom visual. It's D3 JavaScript. I have another talk on how I built that tomorrow. And what that's doing is saying, how many gyro stream telemetry events am I getting from the device and displaying that here on the dashboard. And if you're at a better resolution, you would be able to see this too, which is the XYZ coordinates in a line graph of the gyro data as it's coming in. And you can do cool stuff like create a report and then have this time slicer here that should, if it's all working, go and allow you to drill down into specific events that are happening as they're happening. Okay, so now all the messages are in, the gyro stream messages are in IoT Hub. What are you going to do with those messages? You probably just let them sit there, right? Because gyro stream data from a Sphero is pretty useless. But it's fun. But a device, like a real device and an IoT solution, you'd want to get that data. And so one of the ways to do so is to set up an Azure Stream Analytics job that takes the data from IoT Hub, does some processing on it, and then sends it somewhere. All right, so it's input, processing, output. It's that's Azure Stream Processor. And how you do that inside of Stream Analytics is you set up a query like this. It basically says, I'm going to get JSON data, and I'm going to have the device, it's blue or red. I'm going to have the XYZ coordinates. You notice I'm casting to big int. That way, when I send it to Power BI recognize that as a number, and then I can do like line graphs and stuff with that number instead of just as a string, and then a timestamp for doing time series stuff. And I intentionally kept this simple, but you can call machine learning. You can do other sophisticated queries on top of your data. This is where I go and check to see Eduardo's. Oh, wait, was it? Is it still Eduardo? Wow. Okay. Wow, Luke P. Wilkins, Eduardo, man, you're getting killed. Okay, so then display messages. We talked about Power BI. We talked about this report with the drill down. The next thing we want to do is talk about this line right here that goes from Logic App to Power BI. We talked about streaming data set. So within Power BI, you define your data set in the browser, and you give it a schema, and you say, here is the username, the hashtag, device, timestamp. So this is the tweet data. So we're going from Twitter to Service Fabric to Logic App. Logic App goes to Power BI. So this is the tweet data with the leader report, and it gives you a URL there. So let me just flip over here. Power BI. So if you go down into Power BI, the last section down there is a new section called Streaming Datasets. You set that up, and it will give you, let me just do Add Streaming Dataset. You select API. Click Next. You say Name. And then you say Name. Right. It will give you, you say historical data purposes. It will store it and allow you to do richer queries. I always just say yes, why not? Click Done. And then it will give you a push URL for that data. And so within my, let's see here. Azure. So this is my Logic app in Azure. So I have this nice designer where you can pull in services and so on. You saw a screenshot of this earlier, but basically we're saying post to this endpoint here with that schema. If it starts with Azure Sphero, do these actions, convert to JSON. So you can, from inline within Azure Functions, you can, within a Logic app, you can create an Azure function. You can send a message to IoT Hub using that connector, and then HTTP post. So this is the HTTP post to Power BI, and that key is valid if you want to hack it. Let's see here. What are we doing? Here we go. Okay, so I intentionally blazed through this because I want to have time for questions. So 4 things: send, receive, process, display. We talked about a lot of different tech: Service Fabric, Twitter streaming API, Logic apps, IoT Hub connector, IoT Hub, gateways, BLE devices, Power BI, Streamlit. There's so much that goes in it. But it's an actual, like I see this every single day in my normal day job, is people use all of these things in fun and interesting ways. So it is actually based in reality. So I finished all the code about 5 minutes before I started talking, so it's not out yet. But if you on my blog, you can do RSS or Twitter. I'll post it there when it's ready. Okay, so let's see if we can. We still have time, right? We still have 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Let's see if the Sphero gods are with us today. All right, we'll see if we can restart it. Maybe blue will just work. We'll see. Okay, we should be open for business. Let's take a look. Okay, we're going to take a look at the results real quick. Here is your last chance to send in your tweets. Blue, 45. Let's see what we got. Come on, blue 45, blue 45. As your phone. It's spinning somewhere. Trust me. No, yeah, I'm thrilled that it actually worked for a couple of minutes. Like, that's a huge accomplishment. I didn't have to go to my backup machine. It's all good. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Okay, we're going to stop now. This is Azure Sphero 2. Let's see. Let me go to my other one. Oh. Luke, raise your hand. Come see me after. All right. What's that? I love it. I love it. Yes. No distractions with my talks at all. You're like, I have no idea what this guy talked about. Is it Hamish? Hamish? Over here? All right. See me after for your microbit. All right. And then I have about 8 stickers. So if you're in the top, if you are there in the top of the list, let's see, Rajesh, Eduardo, Ankan, Matthew Rust, Ezekiel, and some other, I think that's a Japanese name. Come and see me after. All right, great. Thanks for playing along. Seriously, that was really fun. That was great. And so I have a couple of other talks, the one today, and I have another one tomorrow at 9 a.m. talking about Power BI. I'm going to bring you through, I'm going to open up VS Code. We're going to go and build that liquid fill gauge that I showed today. And then on Wednesday at 1:40, where I'm going to be talking about work-life balance, because I'm a manager and I get asked about that all the time. So I have a couple of things to say about it. All right, so let's do some Q&A. Any questions for me about anything? You guys got it? Everyone's got it? All right. Okay, so what happens if there's red and blue in the string? Yeah, so I only, so in my Logic app, I say condition if the tweet starts with Azure Sphero, then continue. So if it's Azure Sphero at the end, I don't do anything. And then what I do is I say take the next thing in the tweet, red or blue, right? And then I send that to the gateway, right? Regardless, there's no checks in there. The gateway will say, do I have a device, red, blue? It will say no, and then it just won't do anything, right? But I like your hacker mentality. Come see me for a job. All right, what else? Yeah.
How do you handle versioning in IoT Hub? So say you have multiple message formats or
Yeah.
another protocol or something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah. So the question was, how do you handle versioning different message formats and different schemas of your JSON as it's coming through. So look at the transport of MQTT, AMQP, or HTTP. That is agnostic, message schema agnostic. You're just basically sending data over the wire, so that you can rule that out as being a problem. Azure IoT Hub just stores it as a blob of data, right? So you could actually just send it in like a plain old string, an int or whatever makes sense to you, and then Azure IoT would just shove that into. There's a backing Event Hub, right? And so as you know, Event Hub is just, or maybe you don't, but Event Hub is just a blob of data. And then it's up to your application. So in Stream Analytics, what you could say is, check for a version number and then process this way, right? Or what a lot of people do is they have a service fabric. And Service Fabric, I don't know if you know, is just basically a high-scale cloud service that dynamically scales up and down. So I took that. The Service Fabric that I was running is basically a console app that I used the guest executable template with Service Fabric and just pushed it to the cloud. What a lot of people are doing is using Service Fabric to process messages in IoT Hub. So what they do is they connect to the Event Hub that's underlying the IoT Hub, process those messages using Service Fabric. So what you could do is in your Service Fabric service, you could check for different versions there, and then have your code handle that. Yeah. Yeah. Questions? No.
With that many services talking back and forth to each other, how would you? This is obviously demonstration, but in a larger application you're building, how would you start handling exceptions and logging what's going on between all the
Right. Yeah. So the question is, how do you handle exception handling, logging, stack tracing, end-to-end workflow? And usually what you're going to do is associate a correlation ID with each of these messages, right? And so if you say, I have a gyro stream data coming here, what I would do is I would insert a correlation ID into that message payload. And then as soon as it gets to my gateway, right, I have some way to recognize that correlation ID and maybe combine it with the device IDs here, right, and then send that to the cloud, right? And then every single step of the way you have a correlation ID. And each one of those systems has a different way of getting to the logs. For example, Service Fabric, you have to do some work to get to the logs, right? So it's not like it's not an easy answer to just say, it's all in this one nice organized bucket. You kind of have to build it at this point. But we're working on, like IoT Hub right now in preview has an operations monitoring system in place. So at least from the IoT Hub perspective, you'll be able to say all logs go to this particular endpoint, and then you can process it from there. Yeah. The questions? Anything not related to this talk? All right. This is running Raspbian. Yep. 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 It's not Windows IoT at this point. Although I was in Windows IoT, I chose Raspbian for this demonstration. Because of Node, I wanted to use Node. I'm kind of a Node fan. All right, in the back, yeah. Azure Functions, yeah. I've seen it in the hundreds of milliseconds. Yeah, yeah. So it's not too bad. If it's any longer than that, then it's a bug. Yeah. All right. Any questions about the talk, Microsoft, my personal life? Anything? All right. Yeah. Oh, what's the cost of IoT Hub or? Yeah, so each of the services are priced independently, but IoT Hub has four different SKUs. One free one that you use for testing, and then S1, S2, S3, and it's $50 a month, $500 a month, and $5,000 a month. And we actually have customers using the multiple versions of the $5,000 a month. But basically, $50 a month gets you like 6 million messages per day, something like that. Yeah. And then each of the other services are priced independently. And so you would have to consider, Azure Function Stream Analytics, Power BI, all that kind of stuff. And there are reps at Microsoft that will help you figure that out. Yep. Any other questions? All right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most of my day is spent either giving them direct feedback on things I hear from people like you. You say, how do I do logging, or what? I'll give them feedback and say, this is not figured out. Let's figure that out. And I've been in this role since May, and they're starting to come to me now and ask me, what should we do in certain cases. And but yeah, it's a lot of fun because I was a dev manager. I'm able to just really pointedly go to them and say, no, this is not right. And I know because I've been doing it for so long, so it's fun. Yeah. Yeah. How smart does the thing have to be to talk to IoT Hub? What do you mean?
What's the minimum sort of parameters to check? Does it just
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So you notice, he said, how smart do the things have to be? These are not smart enough, right? A lot of protocols are not smart enough. Any kind of RFID, protocol is not going to be. So it has to be HTTP, AMQP, or MQTT, which are internet protocols, right? So it has to be the device talking to IoT Hub has to be internet connected. Yep. Yeah. What do I find most challenging about managing people? Wow, I love it. This is right in my back pocket. Honestly, the most challenging thing is seeing people in a unique perspective, right? So everybody is unique. Everybody has their own challenges. And I've managed teams up to 25 people reporting directly to me, and teams up to 50 of distributed through leads. And everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And as a manager, you want to be able to, help that person grow towards their strengths, right? And identifying those strengths and getting that person to identify those strengths and help them with their careers in that way is kind of one of the most challenging things. I take that, I take it as a very important thing as a manager to be able to help them figure that out. Yeah. There are a lot of things, man. So many things. But that one just came to me, and dealing with people that are a lot younger than me is challenging. I used to be the young guy in 2003 when I started at Microsoft. I was the young guy, and now I'm the old guy. All right, yeah.
Will you be looking into IoT security as some of the advice you might be giving out to other people?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so one of the things of Azure IoT is the security capabilities on the per device security. So we didn't get into it, but I can show anybody who wants. In the Azure portal, you can say, I'll issue this device specific restrictions. So you can say, only read data with this device, or only send data with this device. And then we have this thing called a SAS Secure Access Signature Token that is generated based on a timestamp and based on a unique key from that device, and it expires, right? So you don't just give this device a key that can live, and so somebody takes your device and has your key and it will just live on forever. There's a dynamic way to generate these tokens, which helps it be more secure, right? Obviously, the industry has not figured out 100% IoT security, but Azure IoT, is taking it very seriously, and we're doing things like that to help. Yeah.
Comment further on that, related
Yeah.
to key management in the device, other than
Yeah.
dynamic key, but
Yep.
must be some permanent ID.
Yes. Yeah. So the question was, you have a key, you have an ID sort of managed on the device. How do you manage it? Yeah. So the key that you get can be encrypted on the device, right? And one of the benefits of Windows IoT is that it does have that security chip there on the device that you can encrypt keys with. But for example, like a Raspberry Pi or a particle photon or something like that doesn't necessarily have those in all of their boards have that capability, right? So which is one of the selling points of using a Windows IoT solution. But it's not figured out. So we have SSL to protect us from the device to Azure. So it's encrypted on the wire, but there's still issues with actually getting access to that device. You're somehow figuring out how to get the keys on that. It's still a concern, yeah. Any other questions? All right. Absolutely not. Can I get one of the dead sparrows was the question. I don't think it's dead. I'm going to resuscitate it. All right, any other questions? Hey, I really want to thank you guys for spending the time. I really appreciate it. My email is jong@microsoft.com. Find me on Twitter, blog. I'm here to help, so thank you. Okay, so